Hi, my name is Hazem, and so now we're going to look more in depth about footwear. So remember, we have three categories of footwear, which are category 1, which meets our CSA standard, and then we got category 2, which doesn't meet any standard, and then category 3 is like a running shoe. So category 1 footwear, like a steel toe boot, will have a green triangle on it, and that means that it will withstand an impact of 125 joules, and it will withstand a force of 270 pounds puncture. So if you step on a nail, the nail won't go through your boot and into your foot. But also, if something falls on you on the top, it won't crush your toes. And this is always on the right shoe, so look for that. And this is what you should be wearing. Now, if it's a lighter environment, you can use a one with a yellow triangle, which tells us that we've got grade 2 protection or 90 joules. And then headwear. So you got hard hats. So hard hats can be class G, E, or C. So class G is the general hard hat, which protects against impacts, but it does not protect against electric shocks. And then class E does protect against electric shocks. And class C um, is conducting. So class G does not conduct electricity, but class C does. So you want to go with a class E, especially if you're working anywhere where there could be power. And then fall protection. So if you could fall more than 3 meters and are not protected by guardrails, then your employer must put together a fall protection plan. And also, if you could fall less than 3 meters but still experience an unusual injury, so like you fall into a big tub of acid, then we must have a fall protection system. So the way you do that is with a harness. Now, if you get a harness, it should be manufactured after July 1st, 2009. That's when the regulations took effect. So this dude, he's wearing a harness, and you can see the harness wraps around his waist and his shoulders and his legs. And the reason for that is if he falls and it's just tied to his arm, it's going to rip his arm right off. So this way, his whole body absorbs the impact of the fall, and he doesn't get hurt from the fall, because the fall is going to hurt. And so second thing we do is there's a D-ring. So this harness has a D-ring at the front and one at the back. And then we have what's called a shock absorber that attaches to the D-ring, and it can attach to the front or the back, or sometimes these D-rings could be on the sides, uh, could be in different places. But then basically the shock absorber, sometimes the shock absorber has the hook at the end. In this case, he's got a lanyard which goes to a hook, and then you hook that to something like on your platform that's strong enough. It's rated like a tie point, an anchor, and then if you fall, this thing actually stretches and it absorbs the impact of the fall so that you don't absorb the impact. So all of your fall protection system components should be compatible and suit your work environment and not be damaged by corrosive material or sharp edges. So when you wake up, when you put your harness on, before you put your harness on, you better check it, and then you better make sure everything's good, and you should make sure that your lanyard's not rubbing against, let's say, the edge of the steel grating and getting cut, so that when you fall, then it breaks in half. So every year or so, or whatever the manufacturer says, you take your harness to some place and they test it out, and they, like a company that specializes in this stuff, and they tell you if it's still safe to use. And if you've fallen or it's come in contact with heat or chemicals, then you have to take it out of service until somebody looks at it. So the manufacturer can look at it, or an engineer can look at it and tell you that it's still good to use. Now, the way you put on the harness is you find the D-ring and then you put the harness over your shoulders, and then you tie you tie it around your legs, and then you tie it around your waist or chest, depending on what you have. So this guy, his harness only has a back D-ring and it doesn't have a waist protection. But this is another example of a harness. So once you put it on and it's all nice and snug, then you can attach a lanyard.